right, let's talk about a case that is just deeply unsettling. John Wayne Gacy. His story, it's this terrifying reminder, that sometimes the most monstrous evil can be hiding behind the most ordinary, even friendly face. If you lived in his suburban Chicago community, you'd think John Wayne Gacy was the picture of a model citizen. Seriously. He was a successful contractor, involved in local politics. He was that guy, the one throwing big neighborhood parties. By all accounts, he was someone you'd absolutely trust. No question. And get this, he even had a side gig that made him a local favorite, especially with kids. He was Pogo the Clown. He'd show up at charity events, birthday parties, and that painted smile? It's just the perfect, chilling symbol of his deception. A cheerful mask hiding something, well, something almost unimaginable. But behind that friendly neighbor, behind that cheerful clown, was a predator. And this is what just shatters that entire illusion. 33. That's not just a number. That's how many teenage boys and young men he murdered. So the big question is, right? How on earth did this stay hidden for so long? Well, the answer starts not where you might think, not with his childhood, but with the horrifying discovery made literally under his own feet. For years, people living near Gacy's home noticed this terrible smell, but he always had an answer, always a plausible explanation ready to go. Oh, it's just some plumbing issues. The soil's damp, probably a dead raccoon under the house. And the crazy thing is, the excuses worked. The secret stayed buried. So what was the source of that smell? His crawl space. It's such a normal, ordinary part of a house, right? But what Gacy did, he transformed his into something out of a nightmare. This wasn't for storing holiday decorations. It was a makeshift tomb, a place he just systematically filled with the bodies of his victims. The sheer scale of what was happening in this quiet, suburban home, it's just staggering. Think about it. Investigators found the remains of 26 victims packed into that crawl space. 26. And then 7 more were recovered from the Des Plaines River nearby. It's hard to even wrap your head around. Okay, so this discovery just rips the mask clean off, and it forces everyone to ask the same question. Who was this guy really? What kind of person could possibly do this? And it really all comes down to this unbelievable double life. You've got the public, Gacy, successful contractor, political activist, Pogo the Clown. And then you have the private reality, a manipulator, a predator, a murderer. He basically built his entire public life into a shield, right? He used that charm and that good reputation to lure his victims into a place where they were completely and totally helpless. Now, let's be clear. Looking back at his childhood doesn't excuse any of this, not for a second, but it does offer some really unsettling clues. He was raised by this abusive, alcoholic father who was just constantly tearing him down. And that, combined with other things like head injuries, seems to have created this deep-seated, pathological need for the one thing he felt he never had growing up: absolute control. And that need for control, it absolutely manifested in the way he operated. He had this chillingly methodical process for targeting and capturing his victims. Yeah, when you look at his method, you realize this wasn't random at all. It was a calculated pattern. Step 1, he'd prey on vulnerability, often targeting young men and teens who needed work or money. His construction business was the perfect lure. Step 2, he'd use that reputation to seem trustworthy and get them to his house. And then, step 3, once that door closed, he was in complete control. The friendly contractor just vanished. And for years, this pattern worked flawlessly for him. But then, Gacy made one critical mistake. He picked a victim whose disappearance would be the single thread that unraveled his entire monstrous world of lies. And that victim's name was Robert Peist. He was just 15 years old. On December 11th, 1978, he told his mom he was going to meet with a local contractor about a job. Simple as that. But he never came home. And that contractor, of course, was John Wayne Gacy. And this is the part of the story that changes everything. Robert Peist's mother, she absolutely refused to believe her son was a runaway. She knew him. She knew something was terribly wrong. And her determination, her persistence, it put a ton of pressure on the police. They couldn't just brush her off, and that forced them to look very, very closely at Gacy as their #1 suspect. Really, her determination was the key that unlocked the whole thing. As soon as investigators got a search warrant for Gacy's house, the entire horrifying truth just came spilling out. And that leads us to the final chapter of his life. And from that point on, his downfall was incredibly swift. I mean, within days of Robert Peace disappearing, investigators found the first human remains in his home. By March of 1980, he was convicted of 33 murders. And then, after spending 14 years on death row, he was executed in May of 1994. But here's the thing. Throughout the trial, throughout all those years on death row, Gacy was completely defiant. He showed zero remorse. It was this classic textbook narcissism. He blamed the victims, he claimed he was innocent. In his own twisted mind, he was the victim. He never once expressed any real remorse for all those lives he destroyed. And his final moments, well, they perfectly captured who he was. His reported last words, right before the execution, "Kiss my ass." Just a final, vulgar act of defiance from a man who truly believed he was above it all, right to the very end. You know, the John Wayne Gacy case leaves us with so many chilling questions. But the most unsettling one, it's probably the simplest. It's the one that really sticks with you, long after you forget the specific details. It's about the masks people wear and the secrets that can lie buried just beneath the surface. And it makes you wonder, how well do you really know your neighbors?